When were you eating cup of noodles?
I don't. Yeah.
You don't?
No.
So, okay, let's just start like this.
What's up,
Besides
man?
pancakes, what's the favorite food?
Besides
Burritos.
pancakes, burritos.
I'm a big
Is
burrito
that
guy.
is that a food like that? Is it
Yeah,
like
it's
a
a
one
food.
ingredient
The whole
food?
diet designed behind it. It's called the burrito diet. I think you can fit everything into a burrito.
And you like the vessel.
Yeah, it's a good vessel.
It's pretty accurate. I mean, you can literally get everything into a burrito, but what are the fillings like? Like, what are you doing? Egg
got in there, you got
burritos?
sour
Okay, if you were to
cream?
ask me what's your favorite food, I would say breakfast. And most people were like, that's not a type of food. I'm like, it's a time of food.
It's a style of food. It has to be. All right, so you're hitting the breakfast burritos.
Yeah, I'm a big breakfast guy.
All right, so we got the breakfast burrito.
Yeah, I'd probably say like Sour Patch watermelons or maybe Sour Patch peaches. That's been my lately
Big candy
go-to.
guy, this
Yeah.
guy.
I saw you ripping them on the mountain every time you go snowboarding.
Yeah, dude, SPK for life.
Which, speaking of snowboarding,
Yep.
fresh, just came back from Japan.
Just came back from Japan.
Japan looked amazing.
It was incredible.
I'm very jealous. So what was the favorite part of the trip? I mean, you guys did everything. You guys were training out there. You guys were
Part
eating
of the
good
trip.
food.
Heli skiing was my favorite part.
Hella skiing.
Yeah, like these guys that were jazzed up to go, and I was always like, that's something that I never thought would come into my life. And so when it was proposed, I was like, yeah, we got to do this. And then once you're like going up in the helicopter and dropping in on these lines that nobody else has touched all day, it was like the most magical snow dream that I've ever had.
Was it any heart flutter, anxiety feelings being that high up and just so isolated? Or have you guys done backcountry skiing type stuff before?
I feel like there's a little bit of anxiety just because I don't ever go somewhere where there's going to be an avalanche possibly. So there's like the risk factor goes up a lot. So that's a little bit of nerves, but for the most part, you're going down these different places where there's like crevasses and different places where you can like mess yourself up. So you got to be very alert.
Yeah, I think just alert. Like nerves are there, but because it's something new, especially the first time you go up and they take you down, and then you have a guide with you, so you're not just out in the wilderness. But they give you so many warnings going into it that you're like inherently like, oh, what do I need to be paying attention to? Where do I need to be going? And after the first run, from that point on, all of that was gone, and it was all just adrenaline and excitement.
So you get to do multiple runs. You get to go-
So you pay for this particular experience. When the fee you paid covered 6 flights, and then if you wanted to, you could pay more per flight up if there's more than 4. There had to be 4 people going. So we were lucky enough that there was 3 or 4 of us that wanted to keep going, and we on a week where they had to cancel 3 or 4 entire days because of weather. We were lucky enough to have 9 full runs on one day,
Damn.
so more than a full day of skiing.
That's awesome.
It was legendary. Yeah.
So now, when you guys went to Japan, was that peak season? Was that off season?
Oh yeah, it's peak season.
I was gonna say so.
So there's this thing in Japan called Japauary or just Japao, because it's like legendary that they get the most snow in January alone. I think they get 400 inches, which is
on
more-
average.
That's more than like some places get all year. So every morning we would wake up and there'd be like a foot of fresh snow. So every day was just epic, and it's light, it's fluffy, it doesn't grab you, it's not sticky.
Is that, and so how is that? Because I've only been to Salt Lake City once,
Yeah.
and I know you guys rip over there home.
Yeah, so Salt Lake
mountains.
Salt Lake's known. It touts itself as the world's greatest snow on earth. And there's some great snow in Utah. Japan spoiled me.
Yeah, I think Japan just gets more consistently over the course of the whole month of January. Whereas, like, yeah, we have good snow in Utah, but it's, that you get a storm here, a storm there. It's not every day like it was when we were there. I think we just timed it perfect because there's some other people that went out before us that were not that impressed, and I think we just hit the.
Yeah, you were like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. This was crazy out
That
there.
was great, man.
So now let me ask you real quick. So when you're doing a run, so you said you got 9 runs in, which is a ton, more than anybody would even probably getting dropped off by a helicopter up to a mountain.
Yep.
How long does one run last down that mountain? How tall was it, or how high?
Ooh, it also depends on the time of day, because at the beginning of the day, you're learning and you're working as a group. So the first couple of runs would take maybe 30 minutes, and you're waiting for the chopper to come meet you or pick you up at the bottom at different locations.
Uber heli.
Yeah, Uber heli shows up. Like I FaceTime my kids, and I was like, hey guys, my Uber's almost here. And my wife's like, there's no roads. And I was like, just wait, babe.
We don't need roads.
We don't need roads. And then I turned the camera, and the
Roads where
helicopter
we're going.
landed. My kids lost their mind. It was epic. But we towards the end, we were knocking out runs in about 20 minutes.
That's great.
But there's on that, yeah. I mean, you have to wait for other. There was 2 groups using the same helicopter, so
Yeah, and it's not like right when you get dropped off, you just bomb it down. You go as a group, so you go about a quarter of the way down, and then you regroup, and then he kind of explains the terrain and what to look out for, and then you go down another quarter of the way. So
you got the buddy system. You got to make sure everyone's
yeah,
still
it's very
there.
buddy system for sure, especially just because you're on top of a volcano and there's glide cracks. So as the ground heats up underneath all this snow, giant portions will just shift.
Damn.
So you got to be like really aware of that. And you know, we're wearing beacons, we have probes and everything. So we got about a 5-minute crash course on how to save somebody. So
Which probably useful in the
yeah, it
worst
was
case
definitely
scenario.
useful, but
well, in the worst
really
case
glad we
scenario, I didn't
have
feel
to.
prepared for an avalanche.
Yeah,
that's
not
for
at
sure.
all.
When an avalanche, if an avalanche came, it would be a where's the OS handle? You know,
Yeah, for
They
sure.
showed you a general YouTube video. They're like, here you go.
Yeah,
10 minutes.
exactly.
You're now experts on
get in the
avalanches.
chopper. Let's go.
Well, gentlemen, it's amazing to finally get to sit down with you.
It's a pleasure, man.
I mean, it feels like longer that I've known you guys, but you know, we got linked up a couple years ago when you came to train with Kai
Yeah,
at
we
the
met,
warehouse.
We met you in Times Square wearing shorts in the middle of
That's
January,
right.
dude. Like
My people
we
know
had
me.
Kai Green doing a first CrossFit workout. Nikki shows up to do his filming, and he's in shorts in the middle of Times Square. I was like, bro,
Like 2 degrees.
I
It's
totally forgot that.
Rio out
That's
here.
awesome.
You
Yeah.
guys thought that you were good with the cold, right? No, then you came and met this
Yeah,
Long
yeah.
Islander, and it's like, oh, it's
Long
different.
Islander,
A little
yeah.
different out here.
He knows what's up.
But I mean, it's been amazing to watch you guys continue to fire on all cylinders, produce amazing content, touch lives, start an amazing supplement company, which is super exciting, which I want to touch on podium. So cool.
Thanks,
and
man.
I think just be good human beings, because it's all vibes when it comes down to it. I tell everybody that. There's a lot of people that I want to talk to, sit down, just hear about their lives and what they got going on and what their journey to where they are currently has been like. But if they're not good people and the energy isn't there, it's not worth it. So
Yeah, man.
I hope the reciprocation is there. I've always loved being around
100%.
you guys, for real. I do want to get into how you guys first started. I know we were talking a little bit before at breakfast, and I said the big thing for me is you guys are filmmakers at heart and fitness enthusiasts as well. So what came first? Was it the fitness or was it the filmmaking? Like, how did you guys embark on the journey of Buttery Bros?
Of Buttery Bros.
Yeah, I mean, well,
I
you
mean-
could start at the fitness point, you could start at the filmmaking point, and then what kind of brought you guys together?
I was interested in doing videos and making content before I got into CrossFit and before I was into fitness. I got into it in middle school, and that eventually led to doing it in high school. And then I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to play football, and it also had a film program at the college I went to. And honestly, like, that was more of my focus, really, was the video production and filming. And I did like all of our high school or our college football highlight videos and everything like that.
What music did you use?
Copyrighted music. Yeah,
Talking
huge
like
advantage.
AC/DC
Huge
or-
advantage. Yeah. Make some
The videos
Banger
are bangers.
Bangers was
Yeah.
a bit 90s rock, you know?
So I didn't really know. I didn't think that after I was done with football that I was going to be wanting to do any more fitness type stuff. I wanted to stay in shape, but that was before I even really delved into CrossFit. And that's when I met Heber. It was like right after I graduated college. He was at a local competition, and we got to link up and kind of trade footage. And he gave me like a media pass, and I could see that he was already kicking off doing a lot of content for CrossFit. And around that time was when the sport was starting to really become a thing, and when ESPN was like interested in doing shows like that. And we did a pilot episode in 2011, I think, at a regional, and that got greenlit for 12 episodes that we needed to produce by the fall. And Heber was currently living in Santa Cruz, and they were trying to recruit a whole team of people to build a media team out there. And that's kind of like when the timing was perfect to kind of take the full plunge, move from Salt Lake City to Santa Cruz and start like the media department for CrossFit in the early days. And yeah, that's kind of how I started. I don't know if you want to start how you.
Sure, man. My journey's been a long journey, and I don't know which came first because So my older brother was making like high school sketches, so like little web shorts, if you consider that now, but it was the late 80s, so very different. And the movie that had just come out was Back to the Future. And so one of his sketches was, he was like, I'm a really cool senior. How did I get so cool? And he went back to the future, and I played the younger version of himself.
Okay.
And that was my first experience with filmmaking and seeing cameras, and I fell in love with the process. And then like,
A star was born.
yeah, Star Wars. A couple of years later, I was editing from like VHS tape to VHS tape, and like learning how to make skate videos to Stone Temple Pilots, and at the same time, simultaneously, I've always had this love and fascination with movies. I grew up like every Friday night rewatching old VHS tapes of movies, and going to Blockbuster and taking forever to figure out which one you're going to rent for the weekend. And one of my favorites was always Rocky 3 and 4, right? Like one of the epic movies of that genre and era. And from that, I also fell in love with fitness. And I had another favorite movie called Running Brave about Billy Mills, who was an old Indian marathon runner. And so I loved running. I loved training. I used to like do sit-ups on my bunk beds at night. I'd wrap my feet around the ladder and do sit-ups there. Because I wanted to train like Rocky and all these other guys. And so movies inspired my fitness, and fitness eventually came full circle after I graduated. I was graduating college, and I found CrossFit, fell in love with it. I had intentions of going to make movies, and like that was my goal, was to go be a director down in Hollywood, or get involved in that space somehow. And in that process, I found CrossFit, fell in love with it, and started to do contract work with them as a side thing. And kind of use it as a way to get from Salt Lake City to Santa Cruz, California, because that's closer to LA than Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And eventually just kept having really cool opportunities with the company of CrossFit. And until, went from doing that pilot that he was talking about, doing live TV shows for ESPN, to directing post-produced shows for ESPN, to then creating 4 feature-length documentaries about the sport of CrossFit for CrossFit, and then leaving them in 2018 and producing 2 more since then on our own, and creating this Buttery Bros channel. So that's like a really long story.
Yeah, really,
summed
the
up into
abbreviated
like
version.
a minute-long abbreviation.
That's amazing. It's. I feel like that's some people's careers spanned out into just how would you say, 5-10 years?
Sort of. So
Of the actual CrossFit to.
About 10 years, actually.
Yeah.
So it looks overnight from people that might not know who we are, but I started working for CrossFit in the fall of 2009, and left that company in the fall of 2018. And then we started the Buttery Bros YouTube channel. We shot our first episode January 1, 2019, and put it out on the 16th or 18th of that month, somewhere mid-January.
What was the first link up between you guys where you decided that it was time to invest the time and resources into YouTube?
Well, I mean, me and Heber had worked together for 10 years, so we knew how to, each of us operated, our strengths, our weaknesses, where we could both benefit from working with one another. So it kind of was like a natural transition from working for CrossFit to doing it for ourselves. So we literally like hit up Matt O'Keefe, who was our business coach 101. Like we took a semester of business class from that guy. He kind of got us up and running as far as like how to, do a pitch deck, how to figure out how to market and, work with the other brands and stuff like that. And so once we launched our YouTube channel, it was almost like this pie in the sky. Like if we can make this be where we put all of our content and bring other people in that want to be a part of it, it seems like a really good platform, and it's a weekly turnaround, and it's something fresh. It keeps us creative. And that's what I like to do. I like to like go out, make something, and have something to show for it pretty quick. Like sitting on stuff for months and months and even years was always stuff that was like a little bit more of a grind for me. I like to be able to like.
You're saying for the longer form videos,
longer
longer
stuff.
projects.
Like those are great, and I feel like those live on for longer. But it's fun to just be creative and do stuff week in, week out, and start from scratch. Even though it's a challenge to come up with a concept and have like ideas and have it all flow and make sense and be engaging for our audience, because we're not just trying to like. It's an entertaining show. It's like we're trying to entertain as well as educate and have it be like a motivational, positive message.
So one of the first videos that I saw was you guys doing the military workouts, like running around doing like the snow, and you guys are doing the long distance running, and
Yeah.
yeah. That was the first video that I saw.
Test.
Oh, the Army?
Yeah, with the Army.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So And then I was noticing all of the overlays and the different the stretching and the mobility in the middle of it, and it was just very cool how it was assembled. It was a show, but you felt like you were almost watching it and engaging with the actual people in it, which is what most shows should be. It shouldn't be just you sitting there watching. It's like, great, you feel like you're in the moment with the actual people on the screen. And I love the overlays that, I believe, you could correct me if I'm wrong, Jules was doing.
Yeah, so
graphics.
Julian
Graphics.
Marquez, he's our motion graphics guy /
Sauce
our
boss.
camera guy. He's like one of our employees, the sauce boss. Like, we worked with him at CrossFit too. So when we were leaving and starting this whole thing, we were like, hey, we really like working with you. You have a great creative talent and style.
Vibes.
Great
It goes on vibes,
yeah.
man.
So
Vibes.
it was he believed in it, and he saw like what we were doing, and we initially just kind of used him to do some overlays, and then eventually that turned into him doing custom graphics for every show, and now he's part of the team. He comes on every shoot with us. He's part of the show.
I remember watching. I was like, these are phenomenal. I love the interactive overlays. The graphics were beautiful. They're colorful. They're exciting. They match the brand and what you guys are putting out there. So it was really cool.
Yeah,
I
and
love seeing that.
Yeah, so those intros were like, YouTube's a very different platform and a different product than what we were traditionally used to doing with like documentary storytelling and stuff. Like, you want to be like super high energy right out the gate, set the stakes so that like within 30 seconds you want to know exactly what you're watching and what you have to win or lose or something like that. And having Julian's graphics really is like an eye-catching, engaging, like bells and whistles all up front.
Yeah. No, I 1000% I agree, because that was the first video I saw you guys, and I was like, got to watch the whole episode. We got to check it out.
Cool. Glad it worked.
So going back to when you guys first started YouTube, and obviously delving into that, you had experience with YouTube, obviously through the content creation through CrossFit, ESPN, stuff like that. What was the process like with figuring out a frequency of uploads, the content that you guys wanted to do? Because content strategy and planning is what a lot of brands lack, and it's the toughest part for a lot of people to kind of kick that off and keep the consistency going. So
because we were filmmaker, that's a learning process, and it's always changing for us. How we kind of got into the rhythm that we're in is initially when we started this, it was really just to document a behind the scenes on a documentary that we were making that year. And so we had no intentions of this being something that we monetize or that we do anything with. And then what ended up happening is brands kept hiring us to make commercials for them. And we'd make these commercials, like Reebok hired us to go make this documentary about these runners in the middle of the CrossFit Games open season, which is a busy time. And we're trying to shoot this documentary, and we're trying to create Buttery Bros stuff. And we shot this 3-day shoot of these runners in West Virginia, and they put it up on their YouTube, and it got like 3,000 views. And then that week we went and shot a video for up in Canada for the CrossFit Games Open for our Buttery Bros YouTube channel. And that video has probably a 300,000 views now, something like that. And it like immediately clicked. I was like, well, these brands are willing to pay me for making this commercial for them, and then they're going to put it on their platform and no one's going to see it. Like, what value does that bring to the company? We need to figure out how to make that value for ourselves, because this is way more fun to do than to track these guys for a couple of days. So once that set in, it was like, okay, now how do we figure out the schedule to, like, now I need to study YouTube to learn how often we should be doing this. So it started out like doing, I think for a while we were doing like once every 10 days was the goal, or once every other week, especially after the CrossFit Open, where it was every week for 5 straight weeks that year. So in 2019, it was, hopefully every 10 days. About a year and a half ago, we started doing every week was the goal. And we've been pretty consistent with that. I think we might have been like a 10-day stretch if we're like switching from Wednesdays was initially what we're doing. And then we switched to a Monday earlier this year. And we've been on Mondays for the last like 5 weeks.
was it some like research that you guys did that you landed on that day as your best day, or just that was the start of the session for you guys?
I mean, it kind of changes. So, like, because the CrossFit Open, they announce the workouts on Thursday. We usually either do them Friday or Saturday, and then you want to have them turned around by Monday, because if you wait much longer than that, the next workout will be announced, and then you almost don't have a lifespan of that video. So that's why we're on the current schedule we're on. But once we get out of the Open, we like to go back to Wednesdays so that we're creating content throughout the week, and then we can enjoy our weekends, and then be having our editors work behind the scenes so that we can produce and have that out by Wednesday. So it just works better with our life schedules and our travel plans. Obviously, when you look at YouTube, it'll show you when your audience is most engaged at what times or what parts of the day. But for us, the combination of both of those things work really well for like Wednesdays in the middle of the week.
So when you're working with, because I get it with Rain and we get it with all these expos and shows, it's about creating the content and releasing it while it's still relevant.
100%.
Super tough. So I was going to ask you guys, how is that usually tough for you guys to kind of quicker, especially when you guys are working more solo-ish, dual, but with yourselves and Jules, and now you've expanded. So before then, now the expansion, did you find that it was tough when these deadlines were so close to each other to get the relevant content out, do everything, and get the next video?
We used to go to an event, film the entire event from Thursday till Sunday night, and have the video go up Monday morning because we wouldn't sleep.
I mean, we did that a year ago. Like,
I remember, yeah.
Anytime we're at a big CrossFit event, that's ultimately the goal, because anytime after Monday, like we've done this multiple times where we've basically put out a feature-length documentary less than 24 hours after an event finishes, because that window of time after an event finishes, that wave is starting to crash. And the later you are on that wave, the less that ride is of that video. And the sooner you can get it up, the bigger it's going to have an impact on the initial algorithm reach on YouTube to then impact its life over the course of the next 3 weeks. So that urgency, that first 24 hours after an event finishes, is massive for us. So I'll lose sleep over that. And I don't mind it so much because then I can get home and I can be there with my kids, as opposed to getting home from being on the road to then having to work to try and get it out, 2 days later, because I'm not really home. I'm just like kind of there as a zombie. So yeah. I almost prefer it. And sometimes it's easier when it's a smaller group of people because you shoot less and you have like very clear defined roles. And then when we bring on, the bigger the team gets, the more stuff can get lost. But we've gotten really good about trying to upload to it's great not having an editor on site because they don't want to experience the event. They just want to work so they can sit in front of a computer and not be distracted. And
so utilize like a Frame.io, upload,
Yes.
have them on standby. Have you guys seen the cloud, the new the cloud software that they're using with Frame.io?
Not yet.
No.
Oh,
Really cool, camera to cloud.
Oh, yeah, I have seen that.
If you have the hotspot or you connect your camera and
So it just makes proxies and puts them straight up.
goes right in. So then you can upload all the full res media later on, and they can just connect it, and the edit's done.
Oh, cool.
Super cool.
yeah.
And super important for you guys with quick turnaround times, deadlines, and once again creating that relevant content.
Yeah, like here's a great story for you. We're at the 2020 CrossFit Games. It's we all know what happened that year, so there was very limited access to what's going on there. And we had an agreement with that company that we could go and produce whatever we wanted, but it had to come out the day after competition. And they were not prepared for how quickly we were going to make stuff. So we went in, we're shooting a documentary about that year's CrossFit Games, and every night we would stay up till 4 a.m. finishing our own YouTube video. So the next morning, a 23 to 40 minute video about the previous day's events would go off, and they weren't doing that for their own channels because they're like, oh, no one's here to cover this. We'll have time to milk this media.
Yeah, enjoy it, and we'll put the content out over the next couple of months.
And there was great relationships in the media the first day. And then the second day, when everyone else realized how hard we were working to get content out, there was awkward tension between like, oh, that's the level, that's the game we're playing right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And
it was like a tit for tat, like
couldn't
little dog
keep
fight.
up. They couldn't keep up. They were playing checkers. We were playing chess,
I love that. You mentioned family. I love the incorporation of family, especially. It's super important because with what we do, I'm only tip of the iceberg. You guys are really traveling everywhere. It's insane. Like it's the schedules that you guys hold and you keep to the T and able to produce the content. I can't emphasize enough how impressive that is.
Thank you.
For real. Like it's crazy. But the importance of family and being able to reset and go home. Did you find that was something, like you said, there was a learning curve in the first process of starting this and getting the content out and shooting and traveling versus now you understand, like, I'd rather just be able to bang this video out and spend the time when I get home?
I mean, it's always evolving. And 4 years ago when we started this, my kids were semi-ignorant when I was coming and going. Now I go to leave and they're like, I don't want you to go. Like they'll have conversations about like, I don't want you to be gone for 5 days. Can you go for 3? And they're like negotiating with me, and I'm like, homie, I'm doing this so that when I get back, we can be present, we can hang out, and we can go do stuff. So there's always a balance there, and for me, it's twofold. When I'm home, I try to be very present and get to the kids' level. And like, I spent 2 hours yesterday when I wanted to go to the gym and get a pump. I spent 2 hours on the floor finding Lego pieces for my littlest guy to build a custom Lego Wujira dragon. And then
But that dragon was awesome.
The dragon's gonna be pretty sick. He's very creative. And then the other thing I try to do is once a quarter try to create like a core memory trip, or at least twice a year. So like last year we went to Hawaii on 2 different occasions, and they were involved in our show, and we did some really cool stuff. But try and go on family trips that they will remember for the rest of their lives, and think fondly of, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean,
sometimes family trips don't always.
They're not always great.
the
Not always great. Yeah. Especially when my cousins were involved. My mom and I always had a great time.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Podium, because I know we're on a time crunch, and I want to make sure that we kind of hit a couple of points.
Yeah.
You know, it's 11, so I'll probably let it run for like another 5-10 minutes, and then I would love to sit down and like actually relax and talk to you guys, have more reins and chill out. But so the incorporation of Podium, when was that a conversation between you two that you said, you know, we want to start our own supplement brand? Because supplements are a very interesting space. I have a lot of friends that are in it, a lot of companies that I work with and that I speak often with. And if you don't have all the right plays in place, it can be very difficult. And I'm glad to see that your brand has continually grown.
Yeah, it all kind of happened by someone sliding into Heber's DMs. One of our previous partners, his name was Jeremy, slid in and said that he had a business partner, Paul Haverland, that had started other previous nutrition supplement brands that were successful, and they saw us as a direct line to the CrossFit community. And so we started having these talks in like late 2019. Obviously, the world shut down, and then that kind of went on pause, and then we kind of revamped it in the middle of 2020. They wanted to get together and just kind of pick our brains and see if it was a good fit. Obviously it was, and we decided to start coming up with the look and the feel, and they wanted us to use our contacts in the CrossFit world and see if we could bring on athletes. And right around that time, it was when Matt Fraser was retiring, and we were like, man, this seems like a perfect opportunity for us all to kind of like go in on this together. Matt, being the 5-time CrossFit Games champion, brings a lot of credibility to the brand. We're great friends with him. We've worked with him for a long time. And so when we kind of proposed the idea of starting this company and this brand together, he was all in. And so that was another really good fit. We launched in, was it September 21?
September 21.
Launched in September 21, and we've kind of we hit our 1-year mark not too long ago, and it's been just like a crazy cool learning process and great experience. Like, we get to go do these flavor testings in Atlanta, and it's really cool just to see how the whole process of tasting it, formulating it, to it becoming like coming down the
an actual product, a tangible unit.
Yeah, coming down the assembly line, and it's just been a really cool entrepreneurial experience for us, and it's something that I'm really stoked that it all happened from just a DM, really.
That's amazing. I mean, that also shows the power of social media, networking, and, you know, being a right fit for brands. And they understand the value that you bring to them. You understand the value that they bring to you, and there's just a relationship that's formed on that. It goes right back to it, vibes.
Yeah,
it's good vibes and everything.
And it's authentic for us because we're CrossFitters. We come up in this space. We know all the athletes. We know how the community works. And so we've brought on just recently Brooke Wells, who's, you know, everybody knows her. She's one of the best in the world. We have Emma Lawson, who's like a really like up and coming female that's going to be on the scene for a really long time. Martins Lisi's World's Strongest Man.
Let's go.
Craig Ritchie, he's out of the UK, content creator. So it's really cool to be able to like lean on him to talk to that audience over there across the pond.
Yeah, the expansion over the pond. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
who created the name or was it like a conjoined? We got to
We,
call it
we
podium.
went back and forth on names.
Yeah, we had a long discussion about
It's
names.
really hard to name something because everything already has a name in almost
and
every
that's the brand
category.
identity right there.
Right?
We're going to be calling this what it is forever, unless there's a rebrand.
Yeah, and what's funny is like we came up with a couple of names prior to this.
We even went down, like, we were starting to design logos for an entirely different name. And, like, before we were finalizing that, we found out, like, there was another company in supplements that had that same name registered that were launching, like, 2 weeks later. And so it was like, oh, okay, we got to change this. What do we rechange it to? And so we had a whole bunch of different names, and Podium just fit really well. It's elegant. You understand what it is when you see it and hear it, and the branding looks phenomenal with it.
I told you, no gas. I love, like, no stroking egos. Anything like. I love the matte feel. I love the color, especially on the BCAAs or EAAs. It's so cool. It reminds me of the grays that they're doing, like the dolphin grays and the cement grays on all the cars now. I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of got like a retro modern feel to it, you know? Because honestly, we originally took a lot of inspiration off of Heber's ski onesie.
I was wearing the ski onesie.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, I was wearing the ski onesie with, like, a matching suits with my family in a photo, and Paul, the other business partner, saw it and sent it to our design agency. It was like, "What about this look?" And it looks like my ski jacket. It's kind of funny.
I did want to ask you guys one question.
Ask away.
From some of the ones that I got, and then
Oh, you got online submitted questions? Is that what we're getting right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Hit me. Blue.
So, do you film men and women in the gym differently? Why and why not? So that's more of like an artistic approach. Do you find that certain, I guess, looks work for men or women, like movements, certain ways of filming?
So I would say for us, like, starting in CrossFit, one thing I love about that sport, and I loved at the beginning of it, was there's equal pay between men and women in the prize money. So the men winning and the women winning make the same amount. And I would say we worked very hard to make sure that each got equal exposure through our media as well, and probably lean towards more women getting media exposure. And a lot of my most popular videos were talking about, like, beauty and strength. Like, that's literally the title of a YouTube video that got millions of views that we made there. I don't shoot them differently other than to be hyper aware of, like, not being a creep when you're filming a woman.
Super important.
So just making sure everyone feels really comfortable, but that's never really a discussion. It's just figuring out, like, are there angles that are better than others, but really I'm not trying to shoot super tight shots on anything. I'm trying to show, like, something about CrossFit. I learned this from filmmaking. When you watch a really good martial arts film, they're just highlighting the capabilities of the actors and actresses and what they're able to do as an athlete, really. Like Jackie Chan, you don't want a close-up of Jackie Chan doing something. You want to see him jump from building to building and fall down the thing, right? So you need a wide-angle lens and some cool camera movement to be able to make the audience feel like they're a part of it, as opposed to just a locked-up tripod.
Like a Born Identity film.
Yeah,
the opposite,
yeah, exactly.
Right?
The
Like
Born
all
Identity is the exact
short,
opposite.
Shortcuts up close. You can't really tell what's happening, but it's high energy. But
So a good blend of those things is kind of what you want. But for filming the athletes, I'm just highlighting their capabilities, and a lot of the time that's best suited with a wide-angle lens, and you can't really find yourself in too terrible situations if you're doing that. if you're catching my drift.
All right, and I guess I'm gonna end off on this. One of my buddies said, "Would you ever consider a rebrand to the Margarine Men?"
the Margarine Men. That's funny you ask. There actually is the Margarine Men are out there.
Yeah,
Really?
Noah Olson?
Chandler Smith and Noah Olson coined the term back in.
Both fellow Rain athletes, shameless plug.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Rain team.
They coined the term back
Go
in
get your
like
storm on.
2019 or something. But those guys are great. Chandler Smith really leans into the character.
I love those guys.
Yeah, those guys are great.
Yeah.
On Buttery Bros, and we're going to end on this because I want to be conscious of time and respectful to you guys and Rain. How did you come up with Buttery Bros? Like the name?
When we worked together at CrossFit, we would say Buttery all the time just by showing a nice composed clip that we were stoked about. The composition was cool. It's slow motion. Look at this shot. Super buttery. It's smooth, right? So we knew that was something we wanted in our name, just because it was kind of part of our ethos.
Yeah, that was the word I was going to use. Yeah. I was going to say it's part of our ethos.
Our buttery ethos. And so when we were coming up with the name, we were literally sitting in the Intercontinental Hotel, ready to go out to watch the first day of competition at Wadapalooza in Miami. And we're like, buttery what? What are we going to say? Buttery dudes? Buttery
Yeah, because we were not
boys?
only naming like our YouTube channel, it was also our business. So it was like, well, if we do bros, like what if we hire a female, you know? And like this is like our film production company. So we ended up with We Are All Butter LLC and DBA is the Buttery Bros.
Love that.
So
I mean, and
we're
if,
official.
if ladies come along, we'll just call them the buttery babes.
Or the Syrup Sisters.
Buttery babes. All right, yo, you heard it here. If we see it at anywhere, you send the checks to these guys. Boys, I really appreciate the sit down. I really appreciate the
Thank
time.
Nikki.
Appreciate you having us on,
Busy,
man.
it's my pleasure, for real. Busy weekend ahead. A lot of expo stuff, a lot of CrossFit stuff. Workout tomorrow. It's going to be super cool. You said we may get some strongmen over there?
We're trying, yeah.
We're trying to get some inverted strongmen.
Cool. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. Thank you again for everybody listening. Check out the page. Links will be below. Thank you for your time. Peace.